Losing transfer tight end should not be an issue for tight end U. We will delve a little bit deeper into the position concerning some recent news and the rest of the room there for the Hawkeyes. Welcome into Iowa Live right here at the Voice of College Football. We do appreciate you stopping by. Consider contributing to the channel in a number of ways. Please like the video, subscribe, and we appreciate your financial contributions as well through the super chat. Corey Brad is here, of course. He's the guy that makes this show roll for us for a 192nd time. Catch Corey every day at from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Hey, Corey, how are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, nice sunny day here in central Iowa, and we got spring football well underway. The news is continuing to it's settled down a little bit on the basketball front since a week ago when we talked, but there's still just so many things, and the transfer portal's wild, and so nothing new there. But hey, I had a chance last night to over on my channel put a plug in for a live show we did last night. People can go back and watch it. Myself, Coach Gary Close, and the one and only AC Earl. We were live last night, so that was fun. Get those two guys back together. And AC is actually he lives back here he lives in Iowa City, and his daughter is a really good basketball player. She plays down at a small college in Kansas, coming back off an injury, and he is a huge sports guy. So plan on getting him involved maybe with some other content here down the line. But that was fun to kind of reminisce, at least Gary and he could reminisce on the 90s and his relationship with Chris Street. And of course, one of the iconic things that I kind of forgot about until it was brought up during the show was how AC had the number 40 in his hair for that Michigan State game right after Chris Street passed. And that's just kind of an iconic screenshot image. I remember Big Ten Network did the Journey, and there were obviously highlights and shots from that game, and players, coaches talking about the importance of that game and that comeback win. And anyways, just cool to get him back on the show and talking about a new era of Iowa hoops.
This is how my memory is working or not working these days. Because as soon as you went through all that, AC Earl, I don't know how many times I watched him play, 25, 30 times probably. Watched him play a lot of basketball. That's when I watched a lot of college basketball. I remember the Chris Street incident. I was reminded of something involving a classmate from my high school today that I do not remember this person. So and with AC Earl, as soon as you mention any player on this show, my instant thought is like a visual of, okay, what did he look like? What games do I remember? But also years. I'm chronologically minded, and I'm losing track of like AC Earl. What years are we talking about?
94.
Okay, I was going to say 92. Yeah, okay.
So he would have been okay, maybe I'm not. Yeah, so he would have been gone in 94. So he was there from 89 to 93.
Okay.
Yep. So, and he was one of the great shot blockers in the Big Ten. We were talking about, there were some good shot blockers back then. Dikembe Mutombo played for Georgetown.
Sure.
Now, if you go further back, Hakeem, obviously. We were talking about the great shot blockers last night is the reason that got brought up in my mind. But which is an art. Shot blocking is an art. So people are curious about that. And get a perspective from a big guy. It's always interesting.
Was AC Earl number 0?
What number did he wear?
That's the first thing that came to mind as well. Was he number 0? And just looking at him being long and lanky and long arms.
Yeah, somebody else would be able to tell. He was 6'10", 240 at Iowa. Do you remember who he was drafted by?
No.
Played for a couple different teams. He was drafted by the Celtics. He was 55 at Iowa.
55, which was the same number as Dikembe Mutombo.
You're right. I don't know. Did Dikembe wear 55 at Georgetown?
Yes.
As well? Okay. Yeah. And then it looks like AC kept that number for the Celtics.
And now that you bring that up, I do remember him with the Celtics. Yes. Okay. All right. On the other end of the legacy spectrum when it comes to Iowa athletics, Gavin Hoffman is not going to get his legacy started, at least at Iowa, because he has decided to transfer. And we're talking about a guy that was the number 1 player in the state of Kansas, 12th rated tight end in the country, according to 247 Sports, and a top 200 player overall. And apparently he doesn't like where he is on the depth chart.
Yeah, you tell me, Mark. I don't know what it means. Because John Nestor also, I published a video here a few days ago about John Nestor leaving, and we talked about him last week. But what are the reasons why a guy would leave either prior to spring practice or right at the beginning of spring practice when you can't enter the portal officially until later, unless I mean, the only explanations I have is you know, you're going to get offers even though it's not legal. Like, guys, teams are going to pursue you because that's just the nature of tampering today. So maybe that's what it is. B, there's a falling out somewhere, either off the field, on the field. Like you said, it's a depth chart issue. Or C, there's an injury that is going to keep the guy out anyways. So he wants to get his name out there right away so that he can be on the radars of schools. The thing about John Nestor, though, is you lose Jamari Harris. They were already struggled at the spot opposite Jamari last year. So they got to get two guys out of that pod, that group. And John Nestor's been in the mix for that since he got here. I mean, he was, like I say, he was the starter opposite Jamari briefly last year, and he was the starter pre-fall camp. So they obviously like him. The one thing I did mention on the video I published over on my channel, people check that out a few days ago. But his dad, he graduated from a school in the suburban Chicago area, and his dad is a coach, has had a lot of different jobs. He took the job. He got the job at West Branch, which is about 20, 30 minutes east of Iowa City. He got that job last year. He resigned this February. And there's rumblings that there were things happening with the fan base, and there's rumors that there were harassing messages sent his way. The team was not a slouch. They went to the state playoffs, I think won a game. So I don't know. I'm not real tapped into high school football, especially not Eastern Iowa football, high school football, but he was there 1 year and then resigned. Now, John Nestor Jr. did not commit to Iowa because his dad wasn't coaching in Iowa at the time, but it obviously worked out for him to be, I'm assuming he was at every game in Kinnick last year, having probably moved his family to West Branch, Iowa. There's also rumblings that maybe the family has some ties down to the Nashville area, and that's where they end up. So who knows? Maybe John, I threw this out yesterday. I'm like, well, maybe John Nestor will end up at Vanderbilt, if there's truth to that. But it just sounds like his dad, who's a coach, has been on the move a lot. And I don't know the reason for that. If it has you would think it has some correlation with his son moving on, but maybe we'll never know. But the Gavin Hoffman thing, you're right. He was either the first or second best player in Kansas in that class, depending on what service you look at. And they're not real deep at tight end now because you lost Luke Lachey last year. Now you lose Gavin Hoffman. You lost Grant Leaper to the portal. He transferred over to Miami, Ohio. And I really liked him, even though he came as in a gray shirt. So they have a good class of tight ends coming in, including Eli Johnson, LeVar Woods' son, and then also the top-rated player in the state of Iowa, up from Clear Lake. So they have good players coming in, but they're not here yet. So none of them have enrolled early. So the guys competing at tight end this spring, unless someone's been moved that we're not aware of, it would be Zach Ortworth. It would be Addison Ostrenga. DJ, is it Vaname, who's a walk-on? Rumblings. I've heard some guy in the chat that keeps bringing up his name like he's going to be some great player. He's a walk-on, and maybe he will be, but I have not heard anything other than people in the comment section of these videos. So he's a guy. And then Michael Burt out of Omaha, really good head on his shoulders. Really liked him out of high school. He came in the same class as Gavin Hoffman. And I think am I missing somebody in there? Hayden Large, technically, but remember, he's played a lot of fullback. Now, with the Tim Lester system, maybe we see him run as a tight end more. I don't think he's certainly a stand-up tight end. But, as Chloe brings up in the chat, Luke Lachey's usage did go down last year. So maybe it's they've lost Leaper and Hoffman here within a few months. Part of that's the portal, you'd think. I don't think anything has to do with NIL. And like either of those guys have NIL aspirations. Although Hoffman could end up at a high major place. Jacob Bostic did that as a receiver. Came to Iowa for like a year or two, never played, and then got a scholarship to go down to Texas A&M. So maybe Hoffman, I brought this up too. Maybe guys will start making their green on just hey, you go to a school, you realize you're not going to sneak into the depth chart early. So you hit the portal right away. And so schools are like, well, he's still got 4 years of eligibility or 3 years of eligibility. And basically what they have is everything that all the recruiting services had from high school. So they still believe in this kid. So maybe that's going to be a more of a routine thing for higher rated kids that struggle early to hit the portal early. So maybe you could explain that with Hoffman. But other than just the usage and the tight end, maybe changing how Iowa looks at tight end with this new offense, I don't have an explanation for Hoffman. That was a surprise.
So it sounds like the position's wide open. There was no established starter, obviously.
Well, I think Addison Estringa is the established starter. Okay. But after that, yeah, I mean, we've seen Ortworth a little. We even saw Michael Burt a little last year. But, we've seen Hayden Large mostly at fullback. So they have people. I think the big thing is if I'm these kids in this 25 class that are coming in this summer, I'm chomping at the bit. Let's go. I don't know, who knows what the spring and summer hold as far as injuries, but you get a couple injuries in that room and all of a sudden they're having to play a freshman. So, they also, I don't know what the current roster numbers are, but they had to get that number down. They got to be hovering close to it now. They've got to get to that point before, I think, fall camp. What is it, 85? Is that the number, Mark?
85 scholarships, but 105 is going to be the number.
105 is the
yeah. Well, which is going to be all scholarships.
Right, I was going to say 85.
Yeah. So it used to be 85 scholarships, and
okay, yep,
it's going to 105.
So 105 is going to be the total, and they did see. I did see. Was it another walk-on? Yeah. Max White, running back, entered the portal. So that was a little bit surprising, just because I shouldn't say it's a surprise when a walk-on enters the portal now with the new roster limitations. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. But I know he's beloved in that room, and I think he's been a real strong leader in that room. So he also entered the portal. So there's, one less guy. And then Devin Van Ness, linebacker, who was the younger brother of Lucas Van Ness, who's a first-round pick for the Packers a couple of years back. Devin Van Ness has also entered the portal. Most people say, who cares? Well, it matters because we're looking at roster totals, and Iowa has to get down. So I don't know where they are currently without kind of counting everybody up, but they got to get down to 105 before you hit fall camp. And so they may not have room to add. I don't know what the future looks like at different rooms, how many guys you want to have. Like I said, tight end, you have 5 right now, and that's probably all they're probably not going to have any space to add anybody out of the portal because they got 3 freshmen coming in, all projected to play tight end.
Based on the conversations I have, most of these major college football teams are roughly 20 over the roster limit. We're going to see 20 players out the door.
Where is that information coming from?
The Athletic and other sites.
All right.
And people that I talk to, have on from various sites.
Yeah. That's a lot of cuts. I mean, I don't know what percentage of those 20 on average are walk-ons. Iowa's already had to let a lot of walk-ons go. But that's significant. I mean, the portal is going to be interesting this year in the spring, maybe more than it ever has and ever will be. Because like the big portal window is in December now with football. But with this new roster rule going into effect, spring is going to be a massive portal. Now you're going to have a lot of guys maybe that's never seen the field or that are walk-ons, but maybe for G5 teams, G5 programs, the spring portal window may be as significant as any.
So I would think that if you're a roster cut at a Big Ten school, then you can go to a G5 and find a roster spot, maybe be a starter.
That's what's several.
But then obviously the back end of those rosters in the G5, they're going to kick down to, correct. And depending on how good the FCS program is you're talking about in the G5, there's not a significant difference there. So maybe they won't be able to get an FCS roster spot, or maybe they will. And again, there are going to be athletes out of jobs, both in football, and the number that I saw across all of college athletics was 5,000 was the number of athletes that are no longer. So this is the plus for all the big time athletes that have no issue with gaining a roster spot, is they're going to be flooded with money, but on the low end, they're not going to be able to participate.
a lot more Iowa guys have ended up at the Northern Illinois, the Miami, Ohio's of the world here in the last, even since the winter window. And like I say, I think that's going to probably continue once we hit the end of spring ball.
This $2.8 billion settlement hearing started on Monday. I understand it's going to be about a week at least until we get settled on this. However, we do know that there's going to be $20.5 million available for each athletic program based on the media rights. The exercise that I would love to play out with you in future weeks would be if you run Iowa athletics.
How am I divvying that up?
Yes. Because I'll let you know how I'm going to divvy up at least the first part of the equation for me. Okay. I'm running random program, Kansas State, Stanford, whoever. Okay. I got $20.5 million. I'm determining, I'm just doing the simple math. It's not so simple, but it's straightforward. Football brings in 82%. Men's basketball brings in 11%. Women's basketball brings in 6%. Baseball brings in 1%, whatever. And that's what it's going to be. And if you play for a sport, play field hockey or whatever, be grateful for your scholarship.
I still don't understand how. So you tell me the legal. I don't want to go off on a tangent here. How is all this legal with Title IX? How can you do what you're just explaining
I don't know
with
that
Title
you
IX?
can. I'm just telling you what I would do.
Okay, this is like a 10-year-old conversation then, because this is what should have been done 30 years ago.
These are finances that are coming in based on the popularity of the sports and the TV ratings they draw.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying there's going to be more. This legal battle is going to create more legal battles if schools try to do what you're talking about.
Or you may see something close to what the ACC did with their football media rights revenue, where they said, unlike the other conferences, not everyone's going ahead getting a equal split. 60% of the ACC money going forward is going to be determined based on your popularity in TV ratings. 40% is going to be equally distributed. Folks, if you want to see a video on this, and I passed it by a guy that knows what he's talking about, and I said, did I nail this right? He said, you're very close on the numbers. I went through the TV ratings for the last 2 football seasons in the ACC. I went through the TV contract and determined 60% based on popularity split, 40% equally split, went through all the numbers, and it changes drastically how much these schools are going to get in TV revenue.
We have to real quick, we can move on from this, but we have to ask our next guest about that, about the conversation of splitting, and because
sure,
I'm going to be very patient on that topic, but how on earth could a person argue that somebody who's playing field hockey for Iowa deserves to be paid what a top football player for Iowa football is making? I mean, there's got to be a way to sanction to get around the Title IX issues that have, in some regards, created barriers for all these years, which we know those aren't the only barriers. The NCAA's created its own barriers, but I just, that's a touchy one for me that I got to be very careful with.
Of course, it's a touchy one. So I'll be the one that goes out on a limb to say, I'm not paying the field hockey player a dime. If their sport does not bring in a dime, they need to be happy with the scholarship that they're receiving that's worth $40,000 or $50,000 a year. Plus, they get to tour the country and benefit from being a scholarship athlete. That should be good enough. Their sport doesn't generate revenue, so you don't get any revenue.
Well, the Big Ten Network does show some rowing competitions.
Okay,
but they're typically,
here's your check for $3.37. There you go.
I hear you.
And then we'll get onto it, but I want to bring up one other layer to this. This is the difficult layer for me. Now, fighting through Title IX, I don't know what the deal is, but I just laid out how I would approach it as a school. But the difficulty would be then, let's say 18 of the 20 million goes to football, distributing it among the football team. That's what I think.
That's what I thought you were bringing up to me initially. See, that would be a better exercise. If you could give me an X amount of football, I could, but then the other thing is NIL's changing to some extent as well.
Yeah.
And that is going to have an influence on what schools pay certain athletes, I would have to think. Maybe it won't, but Yeah, that's a fascinating exercise.
I know I'm going back to last year's team, but it's a good example. Maybe how in the world do you know how to pay Jay Higgins versus Nick Jackson? Like, who's bet? Are they exactly the same? That's a nightmare, I think.
This is why this is pro sports. This is why they're negotiate. I mean, you're going to have to have. You're going to have to. I don't know if it's in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years, but each of these players they each have agents when they enter the portal to negotiate with their future schools. You're going to have negotiations within. I mean, they're basically already doing that with NIL. It's just got to transition to. It's got to transition to this employment, whatever you want to call the revenue sharing. I guess technically they don't consider it employment yet, but.
And then even if you accurately evaluate these players, think about this. I could ask you the question and you would be able to spit out a name of an Iowa player who was not considered to be much of a factor that had a breakout season and turned out to be a star. And then the inverse is who was counted on to be a star and bombed, and they're going to be paid based on the expectation going into that season.
What if you could pay guys on a month-to-month basis based on their performance in said month, like averages? And I don't know, like that's a rabbit hole that we probably shouldn't be going down, but that would be a fun exercise to do. How much is a third string quarterback at Iowa derive?
We'll dive into that. All right. We appreciate everyone being here at the Voice of College Football. If you caught our show last week, you were introduced to Zoe Bentler, who joined us and is joining us here at the Voice of College Football. And it must be based on the configuration I have. There we go. I kept clicking Zoe on and she wasn't showing up. We got to get the right layout for you, Zoe. Thank you for being here, Zoe. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Absolutely. How you doing?
I'm good. I just finished another dance class, so I'm still in said dance class, but I'm here and we're good.
Nice. How is the life at the University of Iowa this week?
You know, it's good. It's a busy time of year with school kind of ending the semester. I feel like I have a million assignments, a million things I have to go help out with, but you know, I thrive in the chaos, so I'm liking it.
Real quick, can I just throw something in there, Mark, before you ask Zoe whatever questions you have for her? Because this has to be brought up. Did you see that Gary Barta was elected to the NACDA Hall of Fame today?
I did see that. We talked about that in one of my classes.
Okay, yeah, that's created some good humorous tweets and comments on social media, Mark. So do you care to comment on that? One of 8 new members to the Hall of Fame, and the group will be honored at the 60th Annual NACDA Affiliates Convention in Orlando on June 9th.
You should do a video on that.
I don't know how I would gather my words to do it. I just did a video the other day about the Fran McCaffrey contract and how much that was butchered with Barta. So this is the one thing that you'll have to hear as we move forward, Mark. The one thing it'll be up to you to test Zoe on is how willing she is to be critical and not mince words as it relates to people like Gary Barta. What are your thoughts on Gary Barta, Zoe? You were part of the Gary Barta. I mean, you were a student at Iowa during part of the Gary Barta era. I'm sure the student body has opinions.
Not the best opinions.
Okay. All right.
But it's, you know, I don't know if we ever really talk about like any of the heads in the athletic department. That's not really anything the student body talks about, which is crazy, but you know, not much about it. I mean, today, even in class, like we touched on it for a second, but that was kind of it. Some faces made, that's about it. Yeah. Not too much.
Well, let's talk about this Iowa football team that's coming up here in 2025. And Zoe, we'll leave it open in regards to some of your thoughts concerning spring practice, you know, whether it be breakout players or impact freshmen or whichever way you wanted to go about what you're looking at concerning this football team.
Right. Again, like I said last time, quarterback, huge question. As of last week, we had 4 quarterbacks practicing. We have Brendan Sullivan, Jimmy Sullivan, Jackson Stratton. We have Hank Brown. Waiting for Mark Gronkowski to get Gronowski to get kind of his footing with the team. It seems that he's still at practice. still interacting with them. But I think that just brings up so much concern with not having that on-field relationship. However, it kind of seems that everybody's pretty optimistic still with his ability, which personally I just find shocking. I feel like Iowa always is known for having quarterback issues coming into the spring practice. So this isn't really anything new to us. I think the only thing being having a reliable quarterback as a backup right now is kind of keeping everybody a little bit sane. I know Ferentz has touched on that a little bit, knowing that we've seen Brendan Sullivan do his thing and kind of keep us sane last season a little bit. So I think that's still the big thing everybody's talking about. I know coaching staff changes has been a big thing that we've seen a lot of media coverage on that as well.
How confident are you in whoever the backup is, Zoe? I mean, Hank Brown obviously played some at Auburn. You've got Brendan Sullivan, who's played some, struggled second half of the bowl game.
Yes.
And frankly, Jackson Stratton, for a guy who may end up being the fourth quarterback on the roster, assuming he sticks around past the spring portal window opening, you've got a bunch of guys who have played, albeit none of them have played at a real high level. So if assuming Gronkowski was healthy right now and the season started tomorrow, how confident are you in one of those three guys being a viable backup?
I hate to say it, but I don't feel too confident. I just don't think anybody has that true footing yet right now with Iowa's team, Iowa's coaching staff. I just don't see it being the best season. I could see it being more of a transitional year. I feel like that's how I personally have felt with all of the media that we've been receiving. I just think this might be a year for like kind of a stepping stone building block.
Zoe, it's that time of year for projections. Okay, so Corey and I were having these conversations this time last year. We were looking at this team and all the talent coming back, looking at a stacked defense, a stacked linebacking core. It just looked like a huge opportunity for Iowa to make a serious run at the college football playoff. Well, they obviously came well short of that. Now they lose all this talent to the NFL draft, which is, of course, coming up here in just a few weeks that we're expecting. Different vibe this season during the off season going into another year for Iowa compared to what Corey and I were talking about, because we were both disappointed in the way the team performed last year, well below expectations. So Iowa, better or worse than 2024?
I feel like last week when I was talking about this, I was optimistic. I said better, but I think it's that transitional year. I don't think we're going to be better this year. Unfortunately, I think it is just going to be a little harder for us, you know, all of the changes with Big Ten as well, who we're playing, what the setup is this year. I don't think it's going to be better.
Yeah, the schedule is Mark, you and who was it? Who was on here the other day that you guys were like trying to gang up on me like a couple of apes? Who was it the other day that was on here with you when you were ripping on me for my predictions?
What?
No, it was, you let somebody call in during our show. It was Erica. Remember that?
Oh,
you let somebody call in. And you guys
on
were
your predictions. What are you talking about?
You were ripping on my analysis because you can't believe that I would have Iowa losing at Wisconsin, losing at USC. And I went back and watched part of that segment later, and I still am baffled by the fact that you are so quick to dismiss Wisconsin playing at home against an Iowa team who has beaten them one time in Madison in the last decade, and a game at the Coliseum where last time they traveled to California to play a crappy UCLA team, they got destroyed on the ground and got blown out by the Bruins. So I'm not trying to drink the crap Kool-Aid here about the projections for 25, but I agree with Zoe. You could easily see 6 and 6, 7 and 5. I do think if things come around at quarterback and they can figure out how to be more efficient in the passing game, the defense has a shot to pick up where it left off at least last year, because the defense was down. And maybe you could squint and see 9 and 3, 10 and 2. But I think there's a broader window there because they're challenging road tests.
You were misreading my take.
Oh, you want to watch? We can reel the tape back, Mark.
Basically, what I heard out of you was they're losing at Wisconsin, and I was just like, "Whoa, wait a minute! What do you?" Wisconsin is not very good.
We were making our early selections, and so on paper right now, I would take Wisconsin over Iowa. I have no idea what this Wisconsin team looks like in the spring. No idea. I do know they've got the Maryland transfer, correct?
Yes.
So, he was very unimpressive, uninspiring at Maryland. But it is third year with Fickle. So
probably going to be the starting quarterback. He's competing with the San Diego State starter, Danny O'Neill. He also transferred in. So
we could see one of those. We could see one of those guys hit the portal in a few weeks, potentially. If somebody emerges there, and you're going to see a carousel of guys hit the portal. I mean, like I said earlier, I don't know that really has anything to do with roster limits, but you may see a lot of quarterback activity this spring, to where maybe even Iowa has brought up the 3 guys who are projected to be behind Gronowski. It may not be those 3. It may be 2 of those and 1 guy from the portal. If Stratton ends up leaving, I just can't imagine that all 3 of those guys that played at Iowa last year, that all were starters at different times, are going to stick around, knowing one of them is going to be number 4 on the depth chart. But that may be, I mean, yeah, I don't know. If they have a scholarship for Stratton, maybe he sticks around, and Brown just got here, and Sullivan seems content to ride out his career as a backup. So I was a little surprised, Zoe, that Sullivan stuck around. I'm not talking about Jimmy. I'm talking about Brendan.
Right.
Simply because when they brought in Gronowski with not like Sullivan was the gift of the Big Ten last year, but he was solid. He's mobile, of course. He did have some plays last year that I think put the conference on notice. But sometimes, with our post-game show with Coach Patterson, he's brought this up. Sometimes it's not a good sign when a guy is content with being a backup. So maybe he's approaching this like, hey, I'm going to be the starter. But I even saw earlier in the chat, somebody brought up how Kirk kind of implied that we have confidence in Gronowski as our starter, even though he's not seen the field in pads yet. And if I'm Brendan Sullivan, I'm hearing those words and thinking, the heck with that. I'm going to go somewhere else because I'm not even given a shot here.
Yeah,
so
right.
I was a little surprised. Were you at the
time?
Turn?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was that press conference I keep referencing where Kirk had media come in. He said that he thinks Gronowski is projected to be ready and well and be playing sooner than projected. So yeah, if I were Sullivan and I heard that, I'd be out of there. I don't know how you'd be content with being backup and knowing that, especially when last year wasn't insanely successful for him with Iowa.
The only question I have, Mark, is we saw Tim Lester in year 1 willing to go with multiple quarterbacks and willing to convince Kirk to allow him to, at least in red zone opportunities, to go with multiple quarterbacks. So maybe there's a scenario where they're able to kind of keep Brendan Sullivan on somewhat of a leash because he's got an opportunity to be that red zone guy still. I don't know. I don't know that you want to take, if Gronowski's one of your 2 or 3 best offensive players, I don't believe in taking a guy like that off the field ever.
I don't either. That's what Penn State did last year. I don't like that.
But it worked for Penn State. They went to the playoff. So, I mean, it did work. It's not like it can't work. I'm just saying Iowa did it because they had Cade McNamara at quarterback, and he was not efficient in the red zone. So
it worked in spite of them doing that.
Okay. Prabula, right? Prabula was the guy down in the red zone for Penn State.
Yeah. And my thought was, when he opted to go into the transfer portal going into the playoff, I said, as long as Drew Aller stays healthy, this is actually a positive. So James Franklin doesn't need to be trying to concoct things in the red zone with a backup quarterback. Just let Drew Aller play the game.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Well,
if
typically
he's the better quarterback, he should just be the quarterback.
Yeah. And if honestly, if I would guess that's how Kirk feels, because Kirk has been adverse to multi-quarterback systems for as long as he's been here. And obviously last year they were incredibly inefficient with Cade McNamara in the red zone. And so they make the change. They got better for a time. But if they come out in game 1, week 1, with 2 quarterbacks, then that's an indication, I think more so, not that Brendan Sullivan has become some great threat that they want to deploy, but I think that probably says more either about Gronowski's health or the confidence they have in him. Hopefully he's the guy game 1 to game 12 and there aren't hiccups in between. They haven't been healthy enough to even have a chance at that here over the last 2 years, and they really haven't had the talent in the room either.
Yeah, it would be nice to go into the season with a stable quarterback, but that usually doesn't seem like our best luck. So
yeah, hasn't happened in a while.
No.
All right, Zoe, before we let you go on to whatever your schedule says, because it seems to be getting you racing all over the place. Is there anything else you wanted to hit on?
No, I think we pretty much got it. I think the biggest things that I've been looking at right now are quarterback staffing changes. I've looked a lot at, Omar Young right now. I was looking at that today, just kind of seeing that same media conference that I keep referencing. We were talking about that, and it just seems that everybody seems really confident, and it's kind of shocking me a bit, but I think I'll keep playing off that confidence and try and get myself a little more confident with our team this season. But until I see them prove anything in spring practice, I'm not too confident yet.
You looking forward to that spring game in 3 weeks?
I am. I'm ready to see some action and actually be able to see it, because I feel like I've been talking about it and reading about it, but until I actually see something major, I don't know what to believe. It's too unpredictable for me right now until I see them all work together.
You going to be on the sidelines for that?
I hope so.
Okay. All right. Mark, you're going to send her on the sidelines, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be your spring. Hey, they don't televise, as you know, Mark, they don't televise. For some reason, Kirk is, again, that's another thing Kirk's against, is actually televising the spring practice. So, which makes zero. Did I see somebody the other day, Mark, some other big time program somewhere?
Oh, Kirk's ahead of he's ahead of the curve. It's happening all over the place.
Other teams are doing that now.
Nebraska, USC, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
For what reason?
Michigan.
What is the reason?
They don't want players to get poached.
They don't want players to get poached. So we're basically encouraging Connor Stallions. We're basically encouraging other teams to send representatives to sneak into other, just who cares? Poached? You're going to get poached because of a spring game being nationally televised? That seems weak. I think it's an opportunity missed. I still believe it's an opportunity missed to showcase your program.
Absolutely agree with that.
Yes, I've been saying that forever. Well, Iowa, what was always funny is the Big Ten Network would show all of the spring games for all the teams, and Iowa was the only one that didn't have a spring game to show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's free publicity.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
We usually get enough video footage, Mark, at the spring game, and we post it. So I guess it's an advantage to our platform to get views, but it doesn't make sense for recruiting purposes. So real quick, one more thing. This got brought up last night. So we had a live show with AC Earl and Gary Close. And before we had those two guys on, it was brought up. Did you hear this quote, Mark? I know you're tapped into football only, but Rick Pitino apparently said, Rick Pitino, Hall of Fame coach, basically stated the other day, current St. John's head coach, that he is and I didn't hear this personally, but apparently he said he's no longer going to be recruiting high school guys. He's done recruiting high school guys. It was I don't know that I've heard anything so funny all year. That's an amazing comment, Mark. For Rick Pitino to I'm just done with high school kids.
Well, it's not football, so you only need 13 guys, right?
I know.
On the roster.
Right.
Yeah.
12 or 13 guys.
Well, he's gotten in some hot water, as you know, when he was at Louisville with some high school guys. So maybe he's better off having adults,
better off
recruiting adults.
Yes.
But anyways,
I guess although you could use the same enticements for transfer portal players.
Correct. Yep.
Zoe, it's great to have you here at the Voice of College Football. You have yourself a great week.
Yes, thank you, guys. Good to see you.
Thanks, Zoe.
Good to see you. All right. A couple things I thought of while we were having that conversation. So, yes, I think it's in our future to break down the Iowa roster and talk about how we would distribute revenue. I think I also ask you typically around this time of year as we lead into the spring game showcase, Kids Day, whatever they call it there.
Kids Day is in the fall. Kids Day is in August. All right. Get it right. My goodness.
What is it then? Spring. It's just the last spring practice.
Open spring practice. It's
open
to the public spring practice. Yes.
That if you could ask, whether it be Tim Lester, I always enjoyed it when it was Brian Ford. I enjoyed it more.
I know.
What are you going to ask? So that's you can tell us that in a future edition. As we lead in.
I got to start. I don't know how much availability we get with court. I don't. So here's the deal. There's already been some availability for media, but as far as because I'll basically be there for the spring game, and then any post-spring practice availability, but it's usually only Kirk. So we may get a few players. I think last year they gave us some players on the field afterwards, but I think most of the assistant coaching availability is during the course of April on campus, unfortunately.
And before I get to my other point that I wanted to make, I had to throw this at you. Minnie, this is an utterly ridiculous statement, but I thought it was hilarious. Is she actually saying that Iowa was the worst team in the Big Ten last year?
No, she's saying that Iowa was the worst team she's ever seen in the Big Ten.
Oh,
not just last year. She's saying it's the worst. The team last year was the worst Big Ten team she's ever seen.
My eyes must be messed up because when I look at the Big Ten standings, I see an 8 under the number of wins. That must be a 0. Yeah.
Well, she's not aware of some of those Rutgers teams back in the 2016 era.
Yeah.
You watch those teams.
Look at the scores of Rutgers games from the time they joined the Big Ten until Shiano came back a couple of years ago.
There were some bad Illinois teams in there. There were some let's see.
Maryland.
Purdue was bad last year, right?
Oh,
they've been horrendous.
Atrocious. They beat an FCS team. That was their only win.
Indiana's been pretty bad. Indiana's had years where they've been horrid.
Yeah. I just found that kind of funny. So, and then other people were making their game or season-long predictions as well. But in Iowa, I understand the Nebraska fan who feels as though Iowa got lucky in that game, but it just seemed apropos, and that's what Iowa does, and that's what Nebraska does.
I don't
Iowa
even remember how that
win.
I don't even remember how that game ended. Can you remind me? I really don't. I don't even remember how it ended because they all end the same way. All the Iowa-Nebraska game. I don't remember. I swear I don't remember. I do not remember.
I know at one point in that game, Nebraska, and this was late in the game, Nebraska's yardage advantage in that game was substantial.
Somebody, I used to be able to remember things, but now I don't.
Iowa forced a turnover. Somebody got a strip sack that set up the game-winning field goal.
Right? Hey, your guess is as good as mine. It's halfway through. Listen, it's late afternoon. This is when my mind starts to shut down and I need caffeine. I haven't had it yet. So that could be. They all end the same way. Miguel Racinos kicks a game-winning field goal. Keith Duncan kicks a game-winning field goal. Drew Stevens kicks a game-winning field goal. Marshall Meter kicks a game-winning field. They all end the same way. It's amazing. And Minnie says we didn't have a long snapper. They haven't had a long snapper in like 5 years. I hear that. I'm sorry. Exactly. They've had snapping issues. They've had center and long snapping issues for like 5 years. Remember the whole Clapgate thing from several years ago?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. The attention to detail at that football program. Now Matt Rule, I'm going to give him a little bit of leeway, but he is 2 seasons in. But the previous administration, that was the biggest.
Okay.
That might be the worst coaching. That might be the worst head coaching job we've seen in this conference.
Okay. This last comment from Minnie, she says, nope, just last season. They haven't had issues with snapping except last season. That's quantifiably false. Oh, yeah. Go back again, just search Nebraska Clapgate. Remember how many balls were flying over that quarterback's head? Who was that? Who was the quarterback that year?
Adrian Martinez.
It was Adrian Martinez. Just constant. I mean, more, seriously, I'm amazed that they've had so many, and it doesn't matter who the coaching staff has been. It has been the same problems over the course of 3 coaching tenures. And now, am I correct in saying Scott Frost is back as the head coach at UCF? Am I right?
He is.
So I think, listen, I'm looking forward to Nebraska bringing him home. When Matt Rule struggles this year and they can Matt Rule, I'm looking forward to the return of Scott Frost. That's what I'm looking forward to, Mark.
They're not bringing him back.
He's the promised son, Mark.
I'm thinking about possibly posting a video of the 10 worst head coaches in recent Big Ten history.
So, okay, real quick, the 10 the worst head coaches of recent Big Ten history.
Yeah, the 21st century, let's say.
Okay, would Lovie Smith be on the list?
Yeah, if I went 10 deep, possibly.
Scott
10? Frost would be probably the worst head coach.
All right, let me see how many I can come up with.
Well, I don't know what my list is. I'm just saying that maybe I will do this.
Bill Lynch.
Bill Lynch. Okay.
Daryl Hazel, right?
Yes.
Hazel will be on the list.
Yeah.
Scott Frost.
Ryan Walters, I guess.
Right. Boy, it's such a short thing, but Ryan Walters. I would have said before he started coaching, Maryland's head coach, but he's
maybe DJ Durkin.
DJ Durkin,
the previous Maryland coach.
Yeah. The scandal makes his time there look worse, but
maybe
Chris Ash. Chef Yoda brings up Chris Ash.
Yeah. He would be on the list.
I don't know why am I laughing at this? I don't know why I'm laughing at some of these.
I think I'm going to do that. How far back should I go?
I don't think you'll have to go more than 10 years to come up with
really not that many bad
If you go
coaches.
back, worst 10 coaches of the 20th century.
We pretty much hit all of them.
Worst 21st century head coaches.
Like Wisconsin's not going to have anyone on the list. Of course,
Iowa
Kirk's
won't.
on the list.
Penn State won't.
Guy.
Penn State doesn't.
Yeah,
have anyone on the
so some of these schools, Ohio State's not going to have anyone on the list.
I mean, like Rich Rod's not going to. Charlie Weiss. Was Charlie Weiss? No, he was never in that. No. Who was the guy? Who is the big guy at
Brady Hoke?
I'm getting Brady Hoke and Charlie Weiss confused. Brady Hoke wouldn't make the list. No,
he won a Sugar Bowl. He had a decent record.
Not
for Michigan, but
Mel Tucker. No, he wouldn't be on the list because he had success. He made it to a New Year's Six Bowl, right?
Yeah. So I may have to go back before
Mark
that.
D'Antonio. No, I think you can get 10 in the last 21 years. We just threw out like 6 or 7.
Yeah, but we've pretty much scoured the
Ron Zook.
Took Illinois to a Rose Bowl.
Yeah, Tom Allen, I wouldn't put him on the list because he had success there briefly.
Yeah.
We
have to do it in light of the program. Tom Allen going 30-40 at Indiana's not necessarily awful.
Yeah, Northwestern, obviously. Although, when did Pat Fitzgerald get hired? Was he hired
2005?
So who was there before him?
Randy Walker. He was good.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not much to work with there. I'm gonna have to
who was Minnesota before the mustache guy?
Oh, Jerry Kill?
Yeah, who was the big guy that was there briefly?
Brewster?
No, not Tim Brewster. Who was the other guy? Who was the guy that relieved Jerry Kill? Who was like, maybe he was never named the permanent head coach, but was he just the interim?
Yeah, because didn't they go straight from Kill to Fleck?
No. Who was the head coach after Jerry Kill at Minnesota? See, somebody else is going to throw this up in the chat before I can even get it.
Oh, Tracy
Clays.
No, look up his record. I bet it's not bad.
I'm sorry. We shouldn't do this.
Yeah, he's not going to be there.
What do you mean? He's got it. Was he not the head coach?
But he didn't have a bad record. Tracy Clays? I thought he did okay.
Okay, I'm going to look it up real quick, all right? Tracy Clays.
You might be okay with Lovie Smith, actually.
Let's see. Tracy Clays was
this like post 1980.
11-8 at Minnesota.
Well, there you go. You're not putting an 11-8 record.
He was 2-4 his first year and 9-4 his second year. Why did he leave? What happened there? Do we remember
PJ Fleck?
Well, why you hire a new guy after 9-4?
What year was that? 2015 or 2016?
14 and 15, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if he relieved Kill in 14, they would have made the change after 14, but they didn't. They waited until after 15. Was he on leave? Was that what it was? Was Jerry Kill on leave and then he never returned?
Could that have been on leave because of physical issues?
Right. Could that have been what it was? So he was on leave briefly in 14 and then was going to return and then didn't. And Clays was stuck as the head coach. That might have been what it was.
Sounds like it.
we came up with at least 6 or 7 that you can work with.
Yeah, I'm going to take it back maybe the last 50 years.
Yeah.
And Scott Frost is going to be prominent. He may be the worst head coach in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Considering what he the resources.
Yeah.
Involved. Yeah, and pulling in top 25 recruiting classes. Terrible.
Gary Anderson. He was not terrible, but I'm trying to figure out guys that maybe weren't. He was not good.
We're really stretching this list. If you're putting on Gary Anderson, he probably won 75% of his games at Wisconsin. He
what
took
about
to the Big Ten championship game.
What about what's his face that relieved Pelini from Oregon State? What was his name?
Mike Riley.
Yeah. What about Riley? Would he be on the list?
Maybe if we just stick to the 21st century and we got to come up with 10 guys, he might. I think Mike Riley's a better coach than that, though.
Bill Callahan wasn't at Nebraska when Nebraska was in the Big Ten, though, was he?
No.
Yeah, Brandt brings him up. He'd be on the list, wouldn't he? If he was Big Ten, maybe.
Yeah.
Who's Bobby Williams?
Michigan State. If we're going back to the late night, he took over for Nick Saban when Saban went to LSU.
Would that have been 2000?
Yeah,
somewhere in there.
Yep.
So maybe he'd make the list. I don't know what his record was.
Yeah, he then gave way to the crazy guy, Jonathan Williams. So they went Bobby Williams, Jonathan Williams. You remember him at Michigan State? John Williams.
I guess I'm getting confused because their current head coach is Jonathan Smith. That's why I was getting confused with Jonathan Williams and Jonathan Smith.
But yeah, he was a nutcase.
Well, Bo Pelini was a nutcase.
Yeah. Bo Pelini.
I'd like. Could we get Bo Pelini on this show? Could we get him on here and him just totally just rip you? Just absolutely rip. Would you let him do that?
Rip me about what?
Who knows? Would you allow him on here just to absolutely rip you?
I would rip him back if he started ripping me. Sure. I would love to have Bo Pelini on this show. Why would he be on this show? We'd have him on the Nebraska show.
I don't know, but is he still at Youngstown?
State?
Is he still at Youngstown?
I believe so.
Oh my goodness. So he's made that home, hasn't he?
Yeah, I guess he's had to.
Jerry DiNardo at Indiana? What was his record at Indiana?
So DiNardo would have been there. We're going back into where he was at LSU first in the 90s. So yeah, I guess he would have slipped into the 2000s. Yeah. It's bad. But this tells you what you need to know about Bo Pelini's personality. Look at his record in Nebraska, how he never got another power conference job.
Who is this? Who are we talking about now?
Bo Pelini.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't. Jason says he's not at Youngstown anymore.
Okay. Yeah, I don't keep track of.
So where was Bob Diaco coaching? Because if people don't know, Bob Diaco is an Iowa GA, and I know Coach Patterson has a lot of respect for Bob Diaco. But when was Diaco was at UConn? When was he ever a head coach in the Big Ten?
He wasn't. Bob Diaco? Where would he? Am I missing something? I'm looking at Bo Pelini.
He was the DC at Nebraska under Mike Riley. But
Bo Pelini, yeah. He went 67-27 in Nebraska.
I mean, doesn't it all come back down to character? Doesn't it all come back to character? And when you're absolutely psychotic and you're throwing your hat at the official and you're about to blow a blood vessel every 5 seconds. I mean, doesn't that? Oh my goodness! Some of those memories, man. I tell you. Oh,
yeah, he was a character.
Yeah.
Pick on Nebraska Day. Yes. Hire a decent head coach. Oh, they have. Matt Rule's good. I don't know if he's going to turn it around. That is yet to be seen, but it appears as though he's in the process.
Yeah, I was trying to find that clip. You remember the clip, though, that I'm thinking of, right? With Bo Pelini. I don't remember what year it would have been. Remember him with the hat? Remember the clip where he just went absolutely nuts with his hat?
How much can you go nuts with a hat? Did he throw it on the ground and then what else can you do?
Didn't he like throw it right at the official or whip it right in the official's face or something? You don't remember that?
No.
Okay. I'll have to try to find it.
I was looking for a Nebraska quarterback the other day and found Bo Pelini just ripping on Taylor Martinez, just again, blood vessels and just like his nose against his face mask, just screaming at him.
Yeah, here's the apparently ESPN took the video down, but this is from 2013. I can't. It says video, but the video is not showing up on their blog post. But the caption is Nebraska head coach Bo Pelini upset with a no call, swings his hat and nearly hits a referee with it. Oh, why won't it show me the video? Flag for unsportsmanlike conduct. Okay, maybe I have the. No, this isn't the video. I see they have a screenshot of it. Oh, this is when he asked. This is the video where he asked Quint Kesnick, "What kind of question is that?" Do you remember that? Do you remember him saying that?
No.
Can I just share this real quick? Let's just
Sure.
share it real quick. This is this is actually after first half against Iowa. Let me share my screen.
Corey, by the way, is probably demonetizing us. So, folks, you should give us like $100 is what should happen here.
Here, I won't make it full screen.
No, that's fine. Throw it up there. We're
right.
losing $1.
All right, here we go. I hope you can hear this.
Coach, what was your reaction to the 2 early interceptions?
Well, what do you think? What kind of question is that?
I do remember that.
What kind of question is that? I mean, who says that to a poor sideline reporter that's just trying to do his job? I mean,
Nick Saban said something like that to, I think it was Maria Taylor a few years ago, concerning when it was Jalen Hurts and Tua. Well, it was more than a few years ago, whatever, 6 or 7 years ago, about you media people just want to rile things up and cause controversy and get people mad and whatever he said.
No, he said, I can almost quote him verbatim. That was the whole Tua Jalen Hurts thing.
Yes.
And she handled it very well, but he basically went off on her because of what everybody else in the media world was doing. I thought it was a very unfair. I actually do have respect for Nick Saban now because I like him on game day, and I like now that he's not a coach and he doesn't work for a different team. I just thought that was an unfair, and he may have apologized to her later, but he was getting frustrated with all the back and forth about who's going to be the starter, yada, yada, yada. And I get it, but I felt that was, and they also won that game. So I felt like it was an odd time to go off on Maria Taylor.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he was basically channeling all of his frustration against the media against one person who probably never came close to ever citing her opinion on the quarterback situation.
One more time. One more thing to share real quick. I won't even share the audio on this one, but one more time. This is Bo Pelini chewing out Taylor Martinez.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about.
I'm sorry. It shouldn't be laughed about because he's absolutely destroying this young man. I mean, look at this. That's not coaching. And then he's destroying the official. Anyways. All right.
Our buddy here, Darren, is going way back in the Wayback Machine because I only caught just a wee bit of Woody Hayes' career, but this was a different day and time. Can you imagine Woody Hayes one time took a yard marker during a game and busted it over his knee and didn't even get thrown out of the game?
Who's the baseball GM? Was that a maybe minor league that it went viral some years ago where he picked up all the bases and he was getting on the ground and covering the home plate up with all the dirt, and then he picked up the bases and took them off the field?
The first Major League Baseball game I ever went to, Indians, Twins, the manager of the Indians at the time, Jeff Torborg, got thrown out of the game. He went into the dugout and just started heaving barrels of bats and balls out onto the field.
I think I remember seeing video of that. Yeah. I mean, you have the Bobby Knight infamous chair throw. You know, that's,
and his press conferences were epic. Just berating people.
Yeah. Yeah. What a legend. And yet you wish he was a nicer person.
Yeah.
You know, but is what it is. He's no longer with us, Mark.
No. We do have Erica chiming in here. We will honor this super chat, of course. Did Bo Pelini ever pull a Fran McCaffrey?
Well, explain what you mean by that, Erica. Fran had his plenty of moments where he absolutely lost his mind, but Fran never did anything quite so egregious like what Bo. I don't think. I mean, he had his moments, believe me, but Bo has just had that look in his face too. You know, he just looked like that guy.
Yeah, he looked like that guy before he ever got mad.
Yeah.
Fran
doesn't. Fran just a guy, just kind of a grumpy guy, but
I can't really think of anybody left in college football right now that has a reputation of being like fiery, like super fiery on the sidelines. Is there anyone? I can't think of anyone.
No. And what's ironic about the Fran and Kirk era is that those two guys overlapped and they were kind of polar opposites of one another. Now, I've heard stories about Forrest Evashevsky that he wasn't a guy that would lose his mind on the sidelines during a game, but he was like a lot of people were scared of him in that department. A lot of people on campus, a lot of people in the athletic department were scared of Forrest Evashevsky. I've heard those stories.
Now, when I was covering sports, firsthand, not here, you would start to hear rumblings about different coaches that either were buddies or they didn't get along. Primarily head football coaches and basketball coaches because they were kind of the power players on campus. Did you ever pick up anything between Kirk and Fran in regards to their relationship?
The only thing I can say, and I've gotten ripped for this comment before, but Fran, whether it be because of recruiting or not, I saw him at a lot of football games, and I don't remember one time on television or in person. And you'd think if he was there, the television would find him, cameras would find him. I don't remember Kirk ever being at basketball game. I know he's been there for Lisa Bluter games, like here and there. And I've gotten ripped for saying that. Oh, he's an avid supporter. He bleeds black and gold, you piece of garbage. But I don't remember ever seeing him at a men's game. And I've watched every game for how many years? So,
yeah, you would think that the TV cameras would show Kirk Ferentz at an Iowa basketball game.
Exactly. So I guess I would say that. And then the other thing I would say is you can say, well, coaches are busy. It's also important. I think a lot of head coaches would say it's important to be and support those other big programs. And, like, for instance, Tom Izzo, he's always at football games. And I think vice versa. I don't know recently with the Mel Tucker, but I'm pretty sure Mike D'Antonio was at a lot of Michigan State games. And I don't know. Maybe Ryan Day doesn't go to Ohio State basketball games and whatnot. I find it odd. I've always kind of found it odd. And I get Fran as sort of a recluse in some regards. I don't think they're the most social people. And I get it. But once in a while, and you would think it would be highlighted. People would find them. There'd be things written, but I don't recall.
Or comments made at news conferences. Let's say Kirk is holding a spring news conference and the basketball team just made the NCAA tournament. That usually there's, from my experience, a celebration or a congratulatory type comment made, congratulations to the men's basketball team that just made the tournament, etc.
He has done that. I mean, he has done that in press conferences, but actually being present, taking the time to be at these events, I can't personally vouch for that.
We've got Erica coming back with, I was referring to Fran's infamous stare down.
Do you remember the stare down, Mark? Here a few years ago, where he had already gotten one technical, and this was at the end of the game. They ended up coming back from like 12 down with a minute to go against Michigan State. But which official was it? I can picture his face. But one more thing, I'll share this real quick. Fran McCaffrey stare down, because this went pretty viral here a couple of years ago. Of course, it's the fourth thing listed when I click on stare down. Okay. I won't even share the audio for sake of. So here's people who are watching on audio. We're just watching a video of Fran McCaffrey. This is a timeout. They're in the middle of a timeout. They're down 10 with a minute and a half to go. They ended up winning this game. Look at him. And then he takes a couple steps forward. And then the official takes a couple steps forward. Oh, man.
I do remember that now.
I love it. Oh, I'm going to miss Fran for his moments. I will say that. I miss those moments. That's part of the reason I was so frustrated this last couple of years. He was so not himself. Maybe it's just him getting older. Maybe it's a medical condition, but yeah, I'm going to miss some of the antics.
What's going on at the big channel this week?
Well, like I said, we did a live show last night with Gary Close and AC Earl. We'll have content again later tonight. I'll have a cut up of that, talking about the new era of Iowa men's basketball. We'll have some staffing news. We'll talk women's basketball on the portal. Lots to get to, basically content every day. And then at some point, we are expecting to have a special guest for an interview that people will not want to miss. So keep it locked into From the Hawkeye of the Storm. But busy as ever. More things coming.
Corey, I am in the process of ranking all of the programs in college football. We ran down from 136 to 50. So I will let you know when Iowa jumps up there in the rankings and when I present that, and we can discuss.
Okay. That sounds good.
All right, folks. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Tuesdays, 4:30 Central, making our back next week, and we will see you then.